All right, let's switch gears here and move to Canada Post. Guns, grenades, drugs, counterfeit goods. They even say a rocket launcher has been mailed through Canada Post. How easy is it to mail this stuff?
Well, the mailing's easy. It's whether it's going to get through. And I mean, I haven't had a chance to pass through that all about report that came out, the RCMP's report, the confidential report that came out. But I have read through enough of it to get a grip of what's been going on here. And obviously, there's been a lot of interceptions, Scott. So we have, the rocket launcher was the biggest head turner, but we've had guns and drugs and a wide range of things. This has been going on for a long, long time. These attempts. What Canada Post have done, as well as the courier companies, is that they've gradually changed their strategy to one that's risk-based. So the regular mail that comes through from residential addresses in foreign countries to a residential address here, it might be around Christmas time, it might be a smaller package, they might be screened in a less robust manner, but the Canadian Border Services, they're on site at these screening locations, and anything that hits a certain level of risk, it all goes through them. And it seems to me as though what we're seeing in this report is that they've intercepted quite a lot of stuff. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lot getting through, but I suspect there is some getting through.
How good a job are they doing, and will we know? Will we ever know?
Well, I mean, the way we're going to find out is through reports like this. Unfortunately, what we've seen with Canada Post is a real budget shortfall.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're losing a lot of money, and they're not able to invest in new technology and kind of keep everything to perhaps the level that it might have been. They have some equipment's getting quite old. I think that they're trying as hard as they can with what they have. I think that they have a very good postal inspector group, but again, those numbers are depleted because of the budget shortfalls. So I think that we need to look at this seriously, and the government has to decide if they're going to put some more funding in to boost up some of the areas here where we need to have probably some more postal inspectors, and we need to have some additional high-tech equipment, because there's a number of different types, Scott, of screening of the different parcels, and they all are used in different circumstances.
Let's talk about that. How easy is it to find this stuff?
Well, I mean, it really depends upon what it is. I mean, at the lowest level, we have visual screening. In the sorting office, there's either cameras or human beings that are kind of keeping an eye on these mounds of mail coming by. Obviously, there's millions going by, every week. So it's hundreds of thousands every week. So that's quite hard. Then there are things like particulate detection. There are things like chemical detection. There are things like metal detection and X-ray detection at the high end. And what they do, essentially, Scott, is that they figure out what fits into what risk category. If this parcel is coming from a country that usually ships these kind of things, like nefarious type of activities happen, if it's a parcel that hasn't got a return address, maybe if it's going to a P.O. box as opposed to an actual address. These are all indicators that the authorities would use to actually compartmentalize these packages into a risk level, and then it would be screened appropriately. Now, in this report, Scott, we may see that the system's working fairly well. There's been some interceptions. It's a little bit of a head turner, but they've actually been doing quite a good job. I think what the suspicion is that we're only capturing part of it, and there are some things slipping through, and I think that that's the portion now that we'll see much more focus on now that this report's surfaced. You
were talking about how Canada Post obviously having its difficulties with technology and such, and just the post not being as needed as it once was. Is it easier to get one of these packages through Canada Post than it would be, say, a courier?
Yeah, that'd be a tough one. I would say no, just to answer the question kind of simplistically. I think that there are some legal requirements in terms of the screening that needs to take place. One of the challenges, though, of course, Scott, is that the police aren't really responsible for this. It's the postal authorities and the courier companies that are doing the screening under some legislative requirements that are set down for them. So, but to answer your question, there's not much of a difference. Both Canada Post and the courier companies have quite robust programs in place But we're dealing with millions and millions of packages, and criminals are adaptive, and they find new ways of doing things. They realize that, certain things might hit the radar screen of the authorities. They mail things from different places in different sizes. They might mail 4 separate packages, and one might get through. There are so many possible options that it's awfully hard to have 100% security through the mail and through the supply chain.
So security obviously just as vital at a courier company as it would be at Canada Post.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I interact quite frequently with the folks that head up security at the major companies, and they do a phenomenal job. They have a whole departments that are looking at the safety of their shipments, whether it be domestic, international, incoming, outgoing. And we're not just talking about on the road. We're talking about rail. We're talking about freight, air freight. There's a wide range of different mediums that these packages are zipping around globally. And the Canadian companies do a really good job. And again, there are requirements here, of course, because the terrorism threat is such that we need to meet certain requirements internationally. We need to meet certain requirements to ship things to the U.S. And there's a whole lot of standards and protocols that the courier companies and Canada Post need to meet in order to be able to operate effectively.
David Hyde is on with us, Security and Risk Management Specialist with David Hyde and Associates. David, thanks for the time and insight as always. Much appreciated.
Anytime, Scott.